Okay, good morning, freshmen. Happy Thursday. Today we are just going to talk about Act 5, Scene 3, the final scene of Romeo and Juliet. This is where Shakespeare wraps up the play and where Romeo and Juliet both die, and we see the consequences of kind of their family's feud and of their actions and just of all the different miscommunication and how it led to their demise. So at the beginning of Act 5, we have Paris going to visit Juliet at her tomb. We find out that he wants to go there every night and lay flowers down for her. We realize that he maybe has developed a really strong love for her. Even in the couple of days that he's known her, he was planning on marrying her. So he's grieving her death, so he goes to the tomb to kind of lay some flowers down and just grieve the death of what would have been his wife. So he's upset, he's there, he sends his page away, and his page kind of hides in the bushes and sees Romeo and Balthazar show up. And so then this sends the page to go find the night watch, the people who are in charge of kind of security at the graveyard. So Page runs off to go find the night watch, and Paris is kind of suspicious as he sees Romeo and Balthazar come, so he kind of hides as well and waits. And then we hear this interaction between Romeo and Balthazar, where Romeo tells Balthazar, I have to go take care of some stuff in the tomb. I'm kind of a crazy person right now. Don't wait for me. Don't come in after me. I need you to just leave. Like, just trust that I need to do this alone. I have to go in there and take care of some things. Here's a letter that I want you to give to my father. And then after that, that's it. That's all I want you to do. Please don't come after me. So Romeo really threatens Balthazar, saying that he's going to kill him if he comes into the tomb after him. And then he gives him this letter that he's supposed to give to his father, Lord Montague, which explains, we find out later, all of the details of Romeo and Juliet's relationship. But Balthazar is really suspicious, so he also hides in the trees when Romeo goes into the tomb. And then Paris doesn't recognize that there's any relationship between Romeo and Juliet. He didn't know about that, so he assumes that Romeo is here to just kind of mess with the tomb, mess with Juliet, just to kind of be a jerk, basically. He doesn't trust Romeo. Romeo's the one who killed Tybalt. And at this point, Paris thinks that Juliet died because she was grieving Tybalt's death. So Paris is super suspicious of Romeo. He doesn't trust that Romeo's going into the tomb. He kind of thinks that he's up to no good, doesn't trust him. So Paris follows Romeo, and then they have this altercation at the entranceway to the tomb. So you need to picture this tomb as like a huge, almost like a cave that you enter down steps to get into, and then along the walls would be catacombs where people would put the bodies of people who had died. If that makes sense. So think of like movies that you've maybe seen where people go down and steps into tombs, and then there's like different shelves in the wall where bodies are placed. That's what would be going on here in the Capulet tomb. And then Juliet's body right now is just laid out in the tomb in the center of it, basically, because she was a pretty prominent member of the family. So that's how you can visualize this. So while they're going down the stairs, Romeo and Paris get into this altercation, and Romeo ends up killing Paris. And then he's like, well, I'm really into it now. Like, I just keep killing these people. I don't deserve to live anymore. I just got to end my life now with my love. Like, this confirms for me that I need to die because I keep causing problems. Like, my life just keeps getting worse and worse. The only solution is death, essentially, which is obviously a horrible outlook to have on life. That's really just a really sad, kind of heartbreaking situation that Romeo finds himself in, and he kind of acts on that in a really unfortunate way. So he goes into the tomb, he sees Juliet there, he kind of grieves her death for a while, mourns the fact that she passed away, mourns that he couldn't be with her, and then he drinks the potion and kind of collapses dead. It moves really quickly. We find out that within minutes he has enough time to just give Juliet a kiss, and then he collapses dead next to her. And then, following that, we have Friar Lawrence show up, and he doesn't know that anyone else is there. He thinks that he's going to show up just in time to see Juliet wake up, and he's going to help her kind of get out of the tomb and take her to Mantua to be with Romeo. So that's what Friar Lawrence is thinking is going on. So Friar Lawrence comes down into the tomb, and when he's there, Juliet does wake up, but then he sees this whole mess of things that have happened, where he sees Paris is dead with the swords, he sees that Romeo is dead, and then he sees Juliet waking up, and he's like, oh, this is bad, this is not going to be good. So Juliet wakes up, and Friar Lawrence explains, like, I don't know what happened, I just got here, but Paris is dead, and Romeo's dead, and I think we just need to get you out of here. I'll protect you, I'll take you to basically a nunnery, and you can just, live out your days there, because her family thinks she's dead. There's not really a good way out of this with Juliet, especially now that Romeo's dead. So Friar Lawrence's only solution is to take her to a nunnery and just have her live as a nun for the rest of her life in secret, essentially. So Juliet really hates that plan for obvious reasons, because that's not really a life that anyone would want, especially if they were expecting to spend forever with their beloved, and then you wake up and see that he's dead. So then we hear some sounds off in the distance. Friar Lawrence hears the watchman coming with the page, hear them running toward the tomb. He freaks out. He leaves. Juliet decides to stay. And then she panics. She doesn't want a life without Romeo, and so she tries to kiss him and see if there's any poison on his lips that she could take. But there's no poison left, so instead she takes a dagger that she sees nearby, which was probably Romeo's dagger, and she ends up stabbing herself with that, and she calls her body the sheath. When she says to the dagger, like, here rest and let me die, she's basically saying, this is where this sheath is going to rest for all of eternity. This is where I want to die. So then she collapses dead in the tomb, and then the watchman and the page enter into the tomb to see Paris dead, Romeo dead, and Juliet dead again, because they thought she was already dead, and then they see that she clearly wasn't, and kind of are starting to put the pieces together of this plan. So then the watchmen send everybody out. They go get the prince, they go get the Capulet family, they go get the Montague family, and they go capture Friar Lawrence and Balthazar, who were trying to escape from the graveyard. And they bring everybody together at the tomb. And once they're back at the tomb, Prince is kind of like, what's going on here? I don't understand this. And then through conversations with Friar Lawrence, Lord Capulet, Lord Montague, through the letter that Romeo left for Balthazar, all this information kind of gets out, and everyone learned what happened. They learned that Romeo and Juliet were in love, that they'd gotten married, that they had a secret plan to fake Juliet's death so that she could live forever in exile with Romeo. They find out all the details of this, and the parents feel a ton of weight of guilt because of this, because it really was essentially their fault. If they didn't have this feud, then Romeo and Juliet wouldn't be dead. They would be able to live happily together. And then Tybalt and Mercutio and Paris also wouldn't be dead. 5 lives at least could have been spared if they had just kind of gotten over their differences. So the prince pretty much calls them out on that. He says, listen, this is your guys' fault. Look what happened as a result of your feud. That sucks for you guys. And then we also learn that Lord Montague also lost his wife because she was grieving the exile of Romeo. So that's just another loss that happens kind of in this scene. And then kind of because of all this, because there was all this miscommunication, because all of this tragedy happened, and because it could have all so easily been avoided, Lord Montague and Lord Capulet decide to overcome their differences and kind of set up statues in honor of their children made out of gold in the town as kind of a reminder of why these feuds are problematic and of why peace needs to reign in Verona, essentially. So that's how Shakespeare wraps it up. He has kind of this come to peace moment between the Montague family and the Capulet family. Friar Lawrence confesses everything that he knows. Romeo and Juliet and many others are dead as a result of all this communication, all these problems. And the prince kind of finally gets the peace that he's been calling for. So Shakespeare writes this tragedy really to point out a lot of different things. One of the big ones is just the issues that can come with unnecessary feuds, when these rivalries and these this bitterness that people can feel in their hearts toward other people. He kind of is showing, look, if these things continue, here's the extreme ramifications of that. We could have people die. We could have children lose their lives because of feuds and because of guilt and stuff like that. So that's one of the points he's trying to make, is just this is a play about forgiveness and peace and overcoming differences. This is also a play about communication, in that Romeo and Juliet obviously acted really rashly. They acted without thinking. They made decisions that affected them, obviously, in a deathly way, that could have easily been avoided with more communication, with patience, with waiting, with planning things out, with just better communication. At the same time, Friar Lawrence and Nurse are people who need to be held accountable in this play, because they both were in on this plan, but didn't really help give Romeo and Juliet good advice. They didn't help with the communication. They didn't help these kids figure out how to get their lives on track. And they kind of had all these secretive plans that no one was in on, and because of that, because no one knew what was going on, things weren't communicated well, now we have 6 people dead. So these are just some of the different things that Shakespeare's pointing out with this play. There's a lot of different themes. What's going to happen now to kind of wrap up Romeo and Juliet? Tomorrow you are going to have a multiple choice test that's going to be posted in classroom. It's going to be a Google form test that you'll just go in and take. You have a week to take it, but you have to do it all at one time. I don't think Google Forms allows you to leave and come back in. So sometime between tomorrow and next Friday, you need to have a time where you can set aside probably about 45 minutes to just sit and take the test. Obviously, it's open notes, open book, open computer, whatever you need to take it. There's no time limit set on it, but you have to take it all at one time. So make sure you're prepared to do that. And then next Monday, the 30th, so a couple days from now, I will post the beginning of what your Romeo and Juliet final project is going to look like. So like I said the other day, it's a 4-part project. I'll explain more in depth what that needs to look like, but basically you're going to be examining the different themes that Shakespeare's brought up, and you're going to be doing a lot of character analysis and literary analysis and close reading based on the play. So if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. Shoot me an email if you need help with anything, if you're not understanding stuff. The Act 5 comprehension questions are up, so make sure that you do those as soon as you can. And then like I said in my other video a couple days ago, All of the assignments that I've posted, I'm going to extend until April 13th. That's the final deadline for everything. Obviously, I would not suggest putting it all off until that last weekend because then you're going to be very stressed. Just do it as you have time to do it, work at your own pace, and get stuff turned in to me by the 13th. So, all right, miss you guys. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have an easy time getting through this play. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys more once we're back. But for now, just have a great Thursday.